Teacher forced to marry mechanic, unaware he was a millionaire in disguise. Emily Thompson could barely hold back her tears as she signed the papers at the county clerk's office. In that moment, her life turned upside down as she was forced to marry a complete stranger, all because of the debts her father had accumulated over the years. That was when she felt Nathan Miller's gaze on her. The mechanic watched her with an unreadable expression as he discreetly wiped his grease-stained hands on a handkerchief. "Don't worry, teacher. This won't last forever," he said softly so only she could hear. Emily swallowed hard. How could this man, with calloused hands and auto shop coveralls, speak so politely? There was something about him that didn't fit the image of a simple mechanic. "Why did you agree to this absurd arrangement?" she asked, still unable to understand why a man would marry a woman he barely knew just to settle a debt. Nathan gave a faint smile, one that didn't reach his eyes. "I have my reasons, and trust me, they're not what you think." The justice of the peace finalized the process and declared them officially married. Emily's stomach sank. At 35, she never imagined her wedding would be like this. No love, no celebration, no guests. Just signed papers in a county clerk's office in a remote Denver neighborhood, with her sick father waiting in the car. "Shall we?" Nathan offered his arm, which she completely ignored. As they left the office, Emily saw her father struggling to breathe inside the vehicle. The doctor had been clear. Any strong emotion could trigger another heart attack. That was the only thing keeping her in this farce. "It's done, Dad," she said as she got into the back seat. "Now you just need to focus on getting better." Mr. Thompson, a 68-year-old man who had always been her model of honesty, now seemed like a fragile shadow of himself. Emily would never understand how he'd gotten involved with loan sharks, racking up a debt impossible to pay off on her literature teacher's salary. "Forgive me, daughter," the old man murmured, as Nathan took the wheel, driving them in silence to the small apartment where Emily lived. 3 days later, Emily was organizing her books on the living room shelf when she heard the key turning in the door. She still hadn't gotten used to the idea of sharing her home with this stranger. Luckily, the apartment had 2 bedrooms, allowing them to keep their distance. Nathan walked in carrying 2 grocery bags. He still wore his auto shop coveralls, though they were cleaner than usual. "I brought some things for dinner," he said, setting the bags on the kitchen table. "I didn't know what you liked, so I got a bit of everything." Emily adjusted her glasses, keeping her distance. "Look, you don't have to pretend to care. We're in this situation out of obligation, not choice." Nathan began putting the groceries away with an organization she wouldn't have expected from a man like him. "Actually, teacher, you're in this situation out of obligation. I'm here by choice." She crossed her arms, intrigued. "What do you get out of this? My father has nothing to offer but these debts." He closed the fridge and turned to face her. There was something in his eyes, a depth that didn't match the simplicity of his appearance. "Let's just say I have my reasons. And no, it's not what you're thinking. I have no romantic interest or," he gestured vaguely, "any other intentions you might be imagining." Emily let out a bitter laugh. "Don't worry. That didn't even cross my mind." An uncomfortable silence hung between them until Nathan's phone rang. He checked the screen and his expression changed instantly. "I need to take this." "Excuse me," he said with a formality that surprised Emily once again. She watched as he stepped into the hallway. His demeanor had completely changed. His voice, once casual, now sounded firm, almost authoritative. He spoke quietly, but Emily managed to catch a few words in extremely formal English, almost as if he were in a business meeting. Who was this man, really? The next morning, Emily arrived at Lincoln High School, where she had taught American literature for 15 years. Despite the chaos in her personal life, her work was her refuge, the only place where she still felt in control of something. "Emily, dear, is it true?" Jessica, the geography teacher and her longtime friend, approached her as soon as she entered the teacher's lounge. "What? That you got married? Just like that? Without telling anyone?" Emily felt her face burn. Of course, the news would spread quickly. Denver might be a big city, but the circle of teachers was small and prone to gossip. "It's complicated, Jessica. It's not what it seems. And what does it seem like? Because what people are saying is that you married a mechanic from Jimmy's auto shop, the one who fixed Principal Margaret's car last month. Before Emily could respond, the school secretary appeared at the door. Miss Thompson, the principal, wants to see you in her office, now. With a sigh, Emily headed to the principal's office. Margaret Wilson, a 50-year-old woman known for her strictness and boundless ambition, waited with a grave expression. "Close the door, please," the principal said as soon as Emily entered. "Is there a problem with my classes, Margaret?" The principal folded her hands on the desk, her cold eyes assessing Emily. "Don't play dumb. I'm talking about your marriage. I don't see how my personal life is the school's concern. Don't be naive, Emily. This is a respected institution. We have a reputation to uphold. A teacher of your standing, with a master's degree in American literature, suddenly marrying a mechanic." The way Margaret said the word mechanic made Emily's blood boil. "I see nothing wrong with my husband's profession, and with all due respect, it's none of your business." The principal smiled, a smile that didn't reach her eyes. "But it is my business when it affects the school's image. I've heard rumors about your father's debts. Do you know how that sounds? A teacher selling herself to pay off family debts?" Emily felt the ground disappear beneath her. How did Margaret know about this? That's absurd and completely unethical of you. What's unethical is using your position here while engaging in questionable arrangements. I'll be clear. Either you end this ridiculous marriage or your contract won't be renewed next semester. Emily left the office feeling humiliated and furious. 15 years of dedication threatened because of a situation she hadn't even chosen. How dare Margaret judge her personal life like that? When she got home that afternoon, she found Nathan in the living room, speaking fluent French on the phone. He seemed surprised by her arrival and quickly ended the call. "You're home early," he remarked, slipping his phone away. "Since when do you speak French?" Emily asked, still shaken by her meeting with the principal. "I picked some up. It's useful for reading manuals for imported cars." Emily tossed her purse onto the couch, too exhausted to question his unlikely explanation. "This arrangement is ruining my life. The school principal is threatening not to renew my contract because of this marriage." Nathan looked genuinely concerned. "She can't do that, it's discrimination." "Well, she found a way to make it seem like the problem is something else. And you know the worst part? She mentioned my father's debts. How could she possibly know about that?" Athensor fell silent for a moment as if considering something. "Don't worry about that now, I'll make some tea." "I don't want tea. I want to understand why you agreed to this marriage. What do you get out of it? Does my father owe you money too?" Nathan sighed, sitting in the armchair across from her. "No, your father doesn't owe me anything. In fact, he was the one who came to me at the auto shop after his car broke down. We talked and he told me about your situation. I decided to help." "Why? That doesn't make sense." "Not everything has to make sense, Emily. Sometimes people just help each other." There was something in the way he spoke that made her doubt. No one simply offered to marry a stranger just to help them out of debt, especially not in a society where people barely stop to help someone on the street. "I have a proposal," Nathan said after a moment. "We keep this marriage for 6 months. After that, we quietly divorce and I'll pay off all your father's debts. No conditions, no strings attached." "Why 6 months?" "I have my reasons. So do we have a deal?" Emily weighed her options. She didn't have many, truth be told. "Fine. 6 months. After that, we go our separate ways." Dear listener, if you're enjoying the story, don't forget to like and especially subscribe to the channel. It really helps those of us just starting out. Now, continuing. Days turned into weeks. Despite the initial tension, Emily and Nathan settled into a peaceful routine. He left early for the auto shop and usually returned at night. They mostly ate dinner separately but occasionally shared a meal in silence. Emily began noticing small details about Nathan that didn't fit the image of a simple mechanic. His posture at the table was impeccable, almost aristocratic. His vocabulary on phone calls revealed a formal education that contradicted his job. And then there were the books. She once caught him reading Ernest Hemingway, completely absorbed in The Old Man and the Sea. "I didn't know you liked classic literature," she remarked, startling him. Nathan closed the book quickly, as if caught doing something wrong. "Oh, I found it on your shelf. Hope you don't mind." "Of course not. It's just, well, it's a bit heavy reading for a mechanic." Emily blushed, ashamed of her prejudice. "I'm sorry, I didn't mean it like that." "It's fine. People often underestimate those who work with their hands," he said without bitterness. "This book, for example, it's about trust and betrayal, about how our perceptions can deceive us. You've perfectly grasped the essence of the work," Emily said, impressed. For the first time since they'd met, she saw a genuine smile on Nathan's face. "Maybe I'm not exactly who you think I am, teacher." The words echoed in Emily's mind for days. There was a mystery about this man, something she couldn't decipher. One Saturday, while Nathan was supposedly working overtime at the auto shop, Emily decided to tidy the small room he occupied. Not that she was snooping, she told herself. She just wanted to keep the house in order. In the nightstand drawer, she found something puzzling. Passports. Several of them with different entry and exit stamps from places like the United Kingdom, France, Japan, and the United Arab Emirates. How could a neighborhood mechanic afford to travel so much? Even more surprising was the photograph hidden among some papers. In it, Nathan wore a flawless suit and was speaking with businessmen in what looked like an international conference. The date on the back showed it was taken just 2 years ago. Emily quickly put everything back when she heard the front door open. Her heart raced. Who was this man she had really married? "Hi," said Nathan, entering the room with a few bags. "I brought Italian food. Thought we could have dinner together tonight." There was something different about him. Maybe it was the way he looked at her, more relaxed, almost affectionate. "I thought you were working at the auto shop," said Emily, trying to sound casual. "I left early. Figured we deserved a quiet night after everything." During dinner, for the first time, they had a real conversation. They talked about books, movies, Emily's childhood in a small town in Colorado. Nathan shared stories of places he supposedly knew from magazines, but Emily could tell from the details he'd actually been there. "What about you? Where are you from?" she finally asked. Nathan hesitated, taking a sip of wine. "I was born in New York, but I'm not close with my family." "Why?" "Let's just say we made different choices in life." Emily noticed he always dodged personal questions, always kept a safe distance. But that night, for some reason, he seemed more open. "Nathan, can I ask you something?" "Sure." "Why did you really agree to this marriage?" His expression darkened for a moment. "I told you, I wanted to help your father. But there must be more to it. No one does something like this without a reason." Nathan set his fork down, thoughtful. "Do you believe in second chances, Emily? In fresh starts?" "I suppose so. Why?" "Because sometimes we need a new beginning. Sometimes we need to be someone else to figure out who we really are." The cryptic answer hung in the air between them. For the first time, Emily felt a real connection with this stranger who was now her husband. At school, Emily's situation was getting harder. Margaret seemed determined to find any reason to criticize her. Her classes were constantly monitored, her methods questioned, her projects rejected. The literature program for underprivileged students, which Emily had run for 5 years, was about to be cancelled due to lack of funding. "I'm sorry, Emily, but we just don't have the resources," said Margaret with false sympathy. "Maybe, if your mechanic husband could fix our computers for free." The spiteful comment made Emily clench her fists under the table. "I'll find a way to keep the program running," she replied firmly. That night, Emily explained the situation to Nathan, more to vent than expecting help. "This program means a lot to you, doesn't it?" he asked after listening carefully. "It's more than important. For many of those students, it's their only chance to experience quality literature. Some discovered their love for reading because of it." Nathan looked thoughtful. "How much do you need to keep it going?" Emily mentioned a considerable amount. Nathan just nodded without another word. 3 days later, the school secretary called Emily to the principal's office. There, Margaret waited with a mix of shock and irritation on her face. "You won't believe this," the principal said, handing her an envelope. "We received an anonymous donation specifically for your literature program, the exact amount we needed." Emily opened the envelope, stunned. Who would donate that much money to a school program? Do you have any idea who the donor might be? Margaret asked, suspicion heavy in her voice. Not a clue. But when she got home that afternoon and saw Nathan calmly reading in the living room, something clicked. It was you, wasn't it? The donation for the program. Nathan looked up from his book, his face a mask of innocence. What are you talking about? Don't lie to me. Where would a mechanic get that kind of money? Maybe I have savings, or maybe I know people who could help. Why would you do that? Nathan closed the book and stood up, facing her directly. Because it was important to you, and because those children deserve this opportunity. Something shifted between them in that moment. An invisible barrier began to dissolve. Emily saw Nathan no longer as a stranger she'd been forced to marry, but as someone who inexplicably cared about what mattered to her. Thank you, she said sincerely. This means a lot to me and to the students. Nathan smiled, a smile that this time reached his eyes. Sometimes, Emily, life surprises us in ways we don't expect. The months passed, and almost without noticing, Emily and Nathan developed a comfortable routine. They had dinner together almost every night, talking about their day. He showed genuine interest in her school projects, offering insightful suggestions about literature that impressed Emily. One Sunday morning, as they had breakfast on the small apartment balcony, Nathan received a call. Emily watched him answer, with his usual shift in posture, suddenly more upright, more formal, speaking in flawless English that didn't match his supposed background. I need to go, he said after hanging up. Auto shop business. On a Sunday? An important client, he vaguely explained. Don't wait for me for lunch. Emily nodded, used to his mysteries, but that day would be different. Shortly after Nathan left, she got a call from the hospital. Her father had taken a turn for the worse and was asking for her. In a hurry, she grabbed her purse and the car keys. On the way to the hospital, she realized she'd forgotten her phone at home. She needed to let Nathan know about her father, in case he returned before her. She decided to stop by the apartment quickly to get the phone. When she walked in, she heard voices coming from Nathan's room. Had he come back? And who was he talking to? She quietly approached the slightly open door and saw Nathan with his back turned, speaking to someone on a video call. He wasn't wearing his auto shop uniform, but a fine dress shirt. Even more surprising was what he was saying. The company acquisition needs to be finalized this week, Michael. The investors are getting impatient. Schedule a board meeting for Tuesday. I'll attend virtually. Emily's heart raced. None of this made sense. What companies? What investors? Who was Nathan really? Unintentionally, she made a noise as she stepped back. Nathan turned abruptly, his eyes locking onto hers. Emily, he exclaimed, immediately ending the call. I thought you were... What are you doing here? I came to get my phone. My father had a relapse, she explained, still in shock from what she'd heard. But I think the question is, what are you doing? Who are you, Nathan? Because you're clearly not just a mechanic. His expression changed. For a moment, Emily saw a vulnerability she'd never noticed before. It's complicated, Emily. I'm getting tired of hearing that. We've lived together for almost 4 months. I think I deserve the truth. Nathan ran a hand over his face, visibly tense. I can't explain everything right now. Your father needs you. Emily felt her frustration grow. Always evasive, always mysteries. Maybe Principal Margaret is right about you. What did she say? That there's something suspicious about this marriage, and I'm starting to believe it. She grabbed her phone from the table and left quickly, leaving Nathan with a worried expression. At the hospital, she found her father stable but weakened. Concern for his health momentarily pushed thoughts of Nathan's secrets aside. Later that day, when she returned to the apartment, she found Nathan in the living room, waiting for her with a serious expression. How's your father? He asked, genuinely concerned. Stable. The doctor said it was just a scare this time. That's good. An uncomfortable silence settled between them. Emily, about what you saw today. You don't need to explain. Clearly you have a double life. I just hope you're not involved in anything illegal. Nathan seemed offended. Do you really think that of me? What am I supposed to think? You show up out of nowhere, marry me for personal reasons, speak languages an ordinary mechanic wouldn't know, make mysterious donations, and now I catch you talking about company acquisitions and investors. What are you hiding, Nathan? He let out a deep sigh. You're right, you deserve to know part of the truth. I'm not just a mechanic. I have other businesses. The auto shop is a place where I can work in peace, away from the pressures of my other world. What other world? The corporate world, but I can't go into details now. There are people who rely on my discretion. Emily studied him, trying to decide whether to believe him or not. Why did you marry me? The question caught Nathan off guard. I already told you, I wanted to help your father. And that's it? There's no other reason? For a moment, something flickered in his eyes, an emotion Emily couldn't identify. I met your father at the auto shop. He talked a lot about you, about how you dedicated your life to taking care of him and teaching, how you gave up opportunities to stay in Denver because of him. Nathan paused, choosing his words carefully. I admire people like that, Emily. People who put family and principles above personal ambition. That's become rare in the world I live in. Emily felt something shift inside her. There was sincerity in his words, a vulnerability she'd never noticed before. What about my father's debts? Did you really pay them off like you promised? I already did, the week after we got married. Emily's eyes widened. How? Why? Because it was the right thing to do, and because I can afford it. Then why keep the marriage going for 6 months? We could have divorced right away. Nathan looked away. I have my reasons, but I promise when the time's up you'll be free, and your father won't owe anyone a thing. Something in his tone struck Emily deeply. There was a loneliness in Nathan, a melancholy she was only beginning to see. You know, for someone who seems to have everything, you don't seem very happy, she observed. Appearances don't always reflect reality, teacher. Isn't that something you teach in your American literature class? Emily couldn't help but smile at the irony. Touché. At school, the literature project thrived thanks to the mysterious donation. The students were excited, and even Principal Margaret had to acknowledge the initiative's success. Still, it didn't lessen her hostility toward Emily. I see your marriage of convenience is bearing financial fruit, Margaret remarked one day, when they were alone in the teacher's lounge. What are you talking about? Oh, come on, Emily. We all know that donation came from your husband. The question is, where does that money come from? I doubt fixing cars pays that well. Emily felt her face burn with anger. I have no idea what you're implying, but I assure you my husband is an honest man. Margaret smirked. Is he? Then, why is he using a fake name? Emily's world seemed to stop for a moment. What? I did a little digging. Nathan Miller doesn't exist in any records before showing up in Denver a year ago. No school history, no prior professional records, nothing. Curious, don't you think? Emily's stomach dropped. Could it be true? Was Nathan living under a false identity? That's ridiculous. And snooping into staff members' lives is unethical, Margaret. I'm just protecting my school's reputation, and I suggest you be careful, Emily. People who live with secrets usually have a lot to hide. Emily left school that day with her mind in turmoil. Margaret's insinuations, though spiteful, touched on points she herself had questioned. Who was Nathan Miller, really? She came home determined to confront him. She found him in the kitchen making dinner as if it were the most natural thing in the world. Hello, he said when he saw her. I made mac and cheese. I know you like it. Emily set her purse on the table, staring at him firmly. Is Nathan Miller your real name? He froze for a moment, then kept stirring the pot. Why do you ask? Principal Margaret said she did some research and couldn't find any records of you before you showed up in Denver. Is that true? Nathan turned off the stove and faced her. Your principal has an unusual interest in my life. Answer the question, please, he sighed, running a hand over his face. No, Emily, Nathan Miller isn't my real name. The confirmation, though expected, hit her like a punch. Then who are you? A criminal? Someone running from the law? No, he exclaimed, looking genuinely offended. I've never done anything illegal. Then why the fake identity? Why all these secrets? Nathan seemed to struggle internally. It's complicated, but I can promise I'm not involved in anything criminal or harmful. Quite the opposite. I can't take these mysteries anymore. Nathan, or whatever your name is, if we're going to keep this arrangement going for 2 more months, I deserve the truth. He studied her for a long moment, as if weighing how much to reveal. My real name is Nicholas Miller. I'm a businessman, owner of a company that operates in several industries. A year ago, I decided to step away from my life for a while, to live more simply, away from the spotlight and the pressure. Emily tried to process the information. Why? I got tired of people only getting close for what I could offer. Money, status, connections. I wanted to see what it was like to be valued for who I am, not what I have. So, all this time you've been pretending to be someone you're not. Not exactly. The auto shop is real. I really work there. I learned mechanics when I was young, before I went into business. It's work that's always brought me peace. Emily sat down, trying to take it all in. And our marriage, was that part of your social experiment? Something flickered in his eyes. Regret, maybe. At first, yes. When your father showed up at the shop with his broken car and started talking about you, about how you dedicated your life to teaching and taking care of him, I was intrigued. Here was someone who clearly lived by principles, not material gain. So you used me as some kind of case study? Her voice trembled with anger. No. Nathan, or rather Nicholas, moved closer, sitting across from her. At first I just wanted to help. But then spending time with you, he hesitated. You're different from anyone I've ever met, Emily. Authentic, genuine, passionate about what you do. Emily felt tears forming, from anger, confusion, something she couldn't name. And when were you planning to tell me? Or was the plan just to disappear after 6 months? He lowered his eyes. Honestly, I don't know. Every day it got harder to imagine this arrangement ending. A heavy silence settled between them. Emily felt betrayed, manipulated, but also inexplicably, she understood his reasons. Who hadn't wanted to escape their own life, even briefly? I need time to process all this, she said finally, standing up. I'm staying at my father's. Tonight. Emily, please. No, Nathan or Nicholas, whatever, I need to think. She grabbed her purse and left, leaving behind the carefully made dinner and a man who clearly regretted everything. In the days that followed, Emily kept her distance from Nathan. She slept at her father's house, went straight to school, and avoided returning to the apartment when she knew he would be there. Her heart was conflicted. She felt deceived, yet strangely understanding of his motives. At school, things got worse. Margaret seemed determined to make her life impossible. I heard you and your husband are having problems, the principal commented with false concern during a meeting. My personal life is not the school's business, Margaret. It becomes the school's business when it affects your performance. Several parents have noticed your recent distraction. It was a lie, of course. Emily had always been extremely professional, perfectly separating her personal life from work. If there are specific complaints, I'd like to see them formally documented. Margaret smiled coldly. Just a friendly warning, Emily. It would be a shame if, on top of your marriage, you also lost your job. The veiled threat hung in the air like toxic smoke. Emily left the meeting feeling suffocated. Why did Margaret hold so much animosity toward her? They had always been professionally cordial, if never close. That afternoon, after classes, Emily was surprised to find Jessica waiting for her in the parking lot. We need to talk, her friend said with a serious expression. Did something happen? Not here, let's get coffee. At the cafe near the school, Jessica seemed nervous, constantly glancing around as if afraid of being overheard. What's going on, Jessica? You're scaring me. Her friend took a deep breath. I found out something about Margaret. Something that explains why she's so fixated on you. What? She knows your father, and not just casually. They had a thing a few years ago. Emily felt as if she'd been struck by lightning. What? My father and Margaret? That's impossible. He never mentioned, because it ended badly. Really badly from what I heard. It was before she became principal. Apparently she wanted something serious he didn't. And now... Now she's taking revenge through me, Emily finished, beginning to understand. But what about my father's debts? Was that part of her revenge too? Jessica shifted uncomfortably. I don't know all the details, but I heard something about Margaret, making sure he got loans, knowing he couldn't pay them back. Emily's blood boiled. The manipulation, the calculated cruelty. How could Margaret use an educational institution for such petty personal revenge? I need to confront her. No! Jessica grabbed her hand across the table. She's dangerous. Emily, she has connections at the education department. She could ruin your career. Then what do you suggest? That I stay silent while she destroys my life and my father's? Jessica hesitated. Maybe your husband can help. He seems to have resources. Emily almost laughed at the irony. You don't know the half of it, Jessica. That night, against her better judgment, Emily returned to the apartment. She needed important documents and, frankly, a few decent nights of sleep in her own bed. She was exhausted, physically and emotionally. She was surprised to find the apartment empty. Nathan or Nicholas would usually be home by then, making dinner or reading in the living room. A note on the kitchen table explained his absence. Had to take care of something urgent. There's food in the fridge. Would like to talk when you can. N. Emily sighed, feeling a mix of relief and surprisingly disappointment at not finding him. The days apart had given her time to reflect. Yes, he had lied about his identity, but his actions had always been genuinely good. He'd paid her father's debts without asking for anything in return, donated to the school project, treated her with constant respect. As she reheated the food he'd left, a delicious pot roast, her favorite, the phone rang. It was the hospital. Her father had been admitted again, this time with signs of a heart attack. Emily rushed to the hospital, her heart tight with worry. When she arrived, she found the doctors trying to stabilize him, and to her surprise, Nathan was there, speaking seriously with the head of the medical team. "What are you doing here?" she asked, stepping closer. Nathan seemed relieved to see her. "Your father called me before he was brought in, said he wasn't feeling well. How is he?" "Stable now, but..." He hesitated. "But he needs surgery, Emily. A procedure the public hospital can't offer quickly." Emily felt her world collapse. Heart surgery? How would they pay for it? "I've already taken care of everything," Nathan continued, as if reading her thoughts. "He'll be transferred to Mercy General Hospital tomorrow morning. Dr. Goldstein, one of the best cardiologists in the country, is already on his way from Denver." Emily stared at him, stunned. "How? Why? Do you really think I'd let your father go without the best possible treatment?" Something broke inside Emily at that moment. All the anger, all the distrust, all the hurt, dissolved in the face of Nathan's genuine concern for her father. Without thinking, she stepped forward and hugged him, tears finally escaping. "Thank you," she murmured against his chest. Nathan wrapped his arms around her, holding her as if she were something precious and fragile. "He'll be okay, Emily, I promise." That night, they stayed together at the hospital, side by side in the uncomfortable waiting room chairs. At some point, Emily fell asleep, her head resting on Nathan's shoulder. When she woke in the early morning hours, she found him watching her with an expression she couldn't decipher. "What is it?" she asked, drowsy. "Nothing, just thinking how unpredictable life is." "How so?" "A year ago, I was just a name on corporate reports. People knew me for my bank account, not my character. And now here I am, married to a teacher who isn't impressed by status or money, worried about a man I barely know but who somehow became important to me." Emily felt something shift inside her. She saw Nathan, Nicholas, not as the liar who had hidden his identity, but as a man seeking real connection in a world of falsehoods. "You didn't have to lie," she said softly. "Maybe not, but would you have given me a chance to get to know you if you'd known who I really was?" The question hung between them, unanswered. Emily didn't know. She had her own prejudices, her own barriers. "I guess we'll never know," she finally replied. The doctor appeared then, informing them that her father was stable and conscious. They could see him for a few minutes before preparations for the transfer. In the room, her father looked frail but alert. He smiled when he saw them enter together. "My two favorite kids," he joked weakly. Emily held his hand, emotional. "How do you feel, Dad? Like an old fool who's caused his daughter too much trouble?" Nathan stepped to the other side of the bed. "Don't worry about anything, Mr. Thompson. You'll get the best treatment. And as for the debts, it's all taken care of." The older man looked at Nathan with gratitude in his eyes. "You're a good man, son. Better than my Emily deserved." Emily felt the tears returning. Her father, always so proud, now humbly thanking them for help. "Rest, Dad. Tomorrow's a new day." As they left the room, Emily noticed a familiar figure in the hallway. Margaret Wilson was talking to a nurse, gesturing nervously. When she saw Emily and Nathan, her face hardened. "What's she doing here?" Emily murmured, tense. Nathan followed, her gaze. "That's your principal?" "Yes, the same one who apparently manipulated my father and is now trying to ruin my career." Nathan's eyes darkened. "Wait here." Before Emily could protest, he walked straight toward Margaret. From her vantage point, Emily couldn't hear what was being said, but the principal's expression shifted from disdain to shock, then to something close to fear. When Nathan returned, he seemed calm, but there was a restrained energy about him that Emily had never seen before. "What did you say to her?" "Just laid out a few facts. Don't worry, she won't bother you again." "Nathan, what did you do?" He guided her away toward the exit. "Let's just say I finally used my resources for something truly useful. I uncovered some irregularities in your school's administration that the educational authorities would certainly find interesting. You threatened her? I prefer to call it strategic negotiation. She leaves you alone, keeps her job secure, and I don't make certain compromising documents public." Emily should have been horrified by the manipulation, but after everything Margaret had done, dragging her father into debt out of spite, threatening her job, humiliating her publicly, it was hard to feel anything but relief. "Thank you," she said simply. Nathan smiled, a genuine smile that transformed his face. "We always protect the ones we love." The words hung between them, heavy with meaning. Emily felt her heart race. Love? Was that what he felt? Dear listener, if you're enjoying the story, don't forget to like and especially subscribe to the channel. It helps us creators just starting out. Now, continuing. In the days that followed, Emily lived in a daze. Her father's surgery was a success, thanks to the specialist Nathan had hired. Margaret suddenly became cordial at school, almost submissive, and as for Nathan, and something had shifted between them. They resumed living together in the apartment, but now there was a new dynamic. They talked openly, shared meals, told stories about their lives. Nathan, she still called him that, as it was the name she'd first known him by, revealed more about his life as Nicholas Miller, about the family business he'd turned into an empire, about the loneliness of success. "People only see the money, the power," he explained one evening as they dined on the balcony under the stars. "No one asks if I'm happy, if I'm fulfilled. They just assume I must be because look at everything he has." Emily watched, him with new eyes, seeing not the billionaire or the mechanic, but the vulnerable man between those extremes. "And you, are you happy?" she asked. Nathan considered the question for a moment. "I've never been happier than these last few months, living this simple life, working with my hands, coming home to someone who waits not for my money, but for my company." The look they shared in that moment held more than words could express. Emily felt her heart warm with an emotion she didn't dare name. "What happens when the 6 months are over?" she finally asked, voicing what they'd both avoided discussing. Nathan's face darkened. The agreement was to quietly divorce. "What if—" Emily hesitated. "What if we didn't want that anymore?" A silence heavy with possibility stretched between them. "Are you saying—" "I'm saying things have changed. We've changed." Nathan reached across the table, lightly touching her fingers. "Emily, from the very first day when I saw you at the county clerk's office, with that ironclad determination to protect your father, even at the cost of your own happiness, I felt something. Something I'd never felt before." "What?" "Admiration, respect, and over time, something more." Emily felt tears forming in her eyes. Why didn't you just tell me the truth from the start? I was afraid that if you knew who I really was, you'd only see what everyone else sees. The money, the status, not the person. She squeezed his hand. You underestimate literature teachers, Nicholas. We're trained to see beyond appearances. He smiled, a smile full of hope. So you forgive me, only if you promise. No more lies between us. I promise. That. Night for the first time, they didn't sleep in separate rooms. William Thompson's recovery progressed well in the following weeks. The truth about Margaret and her petty revenge came to light, not through public exposure, but in a private confession the principal herself made to Emily, clearly fearing the consequences Nathan had mentioned. It was a terrible mistake, Margaret admitted, her pride finally subdued. I never thought it would affect your father's health. Emily could have demanded her resignation, could have sought retaliation for the months of humiliation, but she chose a different path. We all make mistakes, Margaret, some worse than others, but I believe in second chances. It was a lesson she had learned from Nathan. Sometimes people aren't who they seem to be, for better or worse, and everyone deserves the chance to start over. The school semester was coming to an end, and with it, the 6-month deadline of their marriage agreement. One Saturday afternoon, as Emily organized her students' final grades at the living room table, Nathan walked in, looking unusually nervous. Can we talk? He asked, sitting across from her. Of course. Did something happen? He took a deep breath. Tomorrow marks exactly 6 months since our wedding. Emily felt a tightness in her chest. She knew, of course, but hearing him say it was different. Yes, I know. According to our original agreement, this would be the time to go our separate ways. She lowered her eyes, a lump forming in her throat. Is that what you want? No, he answered firmly. It's not what I want. But I need to be completely honest with you now. Nathan pulled an envelope from his pocket and placed it on the table. What is this? The whole truth. Something even your father doesn't know. Curious, Emily opened the envelope. Inside were old newspaper clippings and documents detailing a surprising story. Her father and Nathan's father, Nicholas, had been business partners decades ago, running a small transportation company. When the company began to grow, there was a disagreement, and William sold his share for next to nothing, just before the business turned into the empire it was today. I don't understand, Emily murmured, confused. My father always felt guilty. He knew the price was unfair, but at the time he was desperate to expand, and your father needed the money immediately for your mother's medical treatment. Emily vaguely remembered her mother's illness. She had passed away when Emily was still a child, but her father had never mentioned this partnership. Years later, when the company was worth millions, my father tried to find yours to compensate. Him fairly. But he had moved cities, changed his name. Changed his name? Nathan nodded. Your father wasn't always William Thompson. Before, he was Robert Peterson. The shock hit Emily like an electric current. What? Why would he change his name? Apparently, after your mother's death, he wanted a fresh start. New city, new identity, new life. The pieces began to fall into place. So when you said you wanted to experience being valued for who you are, not what you have, partially true, but I came to Denver specifically to find Robert Peterson, your father. When I found him, he didn't recognize me, of course. I was just a baby when the partnership ended, but I recognized him from old photos. And the marriage, was that part of the plan too? Nathan shook his head. No, that was unexpected. When I met your father at the auto shop, I only planned to get close, earn his trust, eventually reveal who I was, and offer the compensation my father never got to give. But then he started talking about you, about how desperate he was over the debts, how afraid he was of disappointing you. Emily struggled to process it all. And you decided to help through this marriage. It was impulsive, I know, but it seemed the quickest way to resolve the situation without humiliating him with charity. And I was curious about you, the devoted daughter he admired so much. Emily felt torn between indignation at the initial manipulation and understanding of the intentions behind it. Why are you telling me this now? Because our agreement ends tomorrow and because—" He hesitated, searching for the right words. "Because I want any decision you make about our future to be based on the full truth. No more secrets." Emily stood up, needing space to think. Her entire life with her father had been built on an identity that wasn't entirely true, and her marriage, begun out of obligation, founded on half-truths. "I need to talk to my father," she said finally. Nathan nodded. "I understand. He's being discharged tomorrow. Maybe it's the right time." The next day, Emily picked her father up from the hospital. Nathan offered to come along, but she preferred this moment alone. On the way to her father's apartment, she gathered courage for the difficult conversation ahead. "Dad, we need to talk about something important," she said, after settling him into his favorite armchair. "From your tone, it sounds serious. It's about the past, about who you were before you were William Thompson." The old man's face paled. "How?" "Nathan told me. Or should I say, Nicholas told me." Her father looked as if he'd seen a ghost. "Miller? He's the son of Richard Miller, your old business partner, yes." The old man sank into his chair, a trembling hand over his heart. "I should have guessed. The resemblance, when I first saw him, something felt familiar, but I couldn't place it." "Why did you never tell me about your past life? About the partnership?" Her father sighed heavily. "Shame, maybe. I sold my share of that company for almost nothing, desperate to pay for your mother's treatments. When she passed anyway, I couldn't bear to stay in that town with those memories. You were so young, I thought it was better to start over. And the current debts. Are they related to that?" He shook his head. "No. That was my own foolishness. I let Margaret manipulate me, wanting to impress her. Before I knew it, I was drowning in loans." Emily held her father's hand, feeling a new understanding of human weakness. "And how do you feel knowing Nathan, Nicholas, is the son of your old partner?" Her father smiled sadly. "Ironic, isn't it? The son of the man I considered my rival for so many years is now my son-in-law and savior. He came to Denver to find you, to fairly compensate you for your share in the company." The old man shook his head in wonder. "Richard always was a man of his word. I see his son inherited that trait." Emily pondered the implications of everything she'd learned. "What do you think I should do, Dad? Our 6-month agreement ends today." Her father looked at her with wisdom in his tired eyes. "The question, my dear, is, what does your heart say? Is this marriage still just an arrangement to you?" Emily smiled, tears glistening in her eyes. "No, it's not just an arrangement anymore." "Then your answer is there." When Emily returned to the apartment that evening, she found it transformed. Candles lit the path from the door to the balcony, where an elegantly set table awaited. Nathan, no Nicholas, she needed to get used to his real name, stood waiting, dressed not in his mechanic's coveralls, but in a well-tailored suit that accentuated his frame. "Welcome," he said, pulling out her chair. "What is all this?" "Our 6-month anniversary, and possibly our last night as a couple, depending on your decision." Emily felt her heart race. "You didn't have to do all this." "Yes, I did. I wanted you to see both sides of me. The mechanic who learned to love, simplicity, and the businessman who could offer her the world if she wished." He served wine in crystal glasses. "How was the conversation with your father? Enlightening, moving. He never fully got over the guilt of selling his share in the company." "And you? Are you angry with me for how it all began?" Emily considered the question. Was she? "At first, yes, I felt manipulated, used, but now I understand your reasons, and I realize that, no matter how it started, what we've built is real." His eyes sparkled with hope. So I think we need to talk about the future." Nathan, Nicholas, nodded, suddenly serious. "First, I need to ask you something. If I weren't Nicholas Miller, the businessman, but just Nathan Miller, the mechanic, would your answer be the same?" It was a crucial question, Emily knew, and the answer came without hesitation. "Yes, because I didn't fall for your money or status, Nicholas. I fell for the man who makes my breakfast before heading to the auto shop, for the man who discusses literature with me on rainy nights, for the man who respected my space when I needed it, and was there when my father fell ill." He smiled, relief evident on his face. "You fell?" "Yes." "And you?" In response, he pulled a small box from his pocket. "I planned to ask you properly, even if you chose to end our arrangement, even if you decided you couldn't forgive my secrets." Emily held her breath as he opened the box, revealing a simple yet elegant ring. "Emily Thompson, our marriage began as an arrangement built on half-truths and obligations. Would you like to start over? This time by choice, built on truth and love." Tears streamed freely down her face. "Yes. 1,000 times yes." He slid the ring onto her finger, standing to kiss her tenderly. "And now," she asked after a moment, "do we return to your life as a businessman? I have a different proposal. I'll keep the auto shop so I never forget the value of honest work. I'll manage the business remotely when possible, and we'll invest in education, creating a foundation to support projects like yours. It sounds like a dream, one we can make real together." That night under the stars of Denver, they sealed not a marriage of convenience but a promise of true love. Two worlds that met by chance, or perhaps fate, now merged into one. 6 months later, the old Lincoln High School became the Thompson Miller Educational Center, a model institution combining traditional education with vocational workshops. Emily continued teaching literature, now with unlimited resources for her projects. Nicholas divided his time between managing the business and teaching auto mechanics to underprivileged youth. Margaret, surprisingly, remained part of the team, though in a less prominent role, a second chance that showed the couple's generosity. Emily's father, fully recovered, served as an honorary advisor, his life experience valued as much as any academic degree. As for the improvised marriage that began with cold signatures at the county clerk's office, it became a solid union built not on obligations or agreements, but on mutual respect and true love. Because sometimes it's in the most unlikely situations that we find our true path, and sometimes we need to lose ourselves completely to finally be found. The end of the story. Dear listener, true love reveals itself in the most unexpected ways. If this story touched your heart, don't forget to leave your like and subscribe to the channel for more emotions like this. Your opinion is valuable. Share it with us in the comments.